Hangout is on the air live, it says. So here it was. I was just painting away, and there it is. Right. Hello, everybody. It's 9 o'clock again. It's Monday night, so that means it must be live at the bench with me, Ted, and him over there, him down here somewhere, wherever he is, down here.
Hello.
Foxx.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday evening.
Yeah.
Thank you for not going off and watching Game of Thrones.
Oh, every time you say that, you can see the numbers dropping off.
Oh, well, hey, at least we're honest. At least we're honest. It's only for 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, damn it, Game of Thrones. I'm off. See you later. Bye, folks.
That's what Sky recording thing is for.
Yeah.
The Skybox records it. You can watch it at your leisure with the lights off.
Right. Hello, everybody. Yes, here we are again. Let's have a look. There's quite a few in. We've already had a look as we were beginning to start, because you guys are all having a chat amongst yourselves, which is nice to see, because that's what this is about. It's a bit of modelling, bit of chatting, bit of reminiscing, looking at things, what's in store, things like that. But the idea is that you all have a chat amongst yourselves. And maybe throw us a few questions. If you do have any questions, if you haven't already mailed them in, ted@emodels.co.uk.
I shall type that in the chat.
Yeah, or you can put your question in chat, but there's a chance it may get missed. We'll do our best. But if you try and highlight the text, put it in bold. Is that right?
Do it in capitals. Do it in capitals.
Capitals. Do it in capitals. Yeah, do it in capitals, and we'll do our best to answer them if we see them in time. So right, who have we got in? Well, it's hi to the usual. There's a lot of usual names
Suspects.
in there. Yeah, the usual suspect. Beyond Hope, Alex. Gross Models, who he is and comes and goes. Well, I don't know. He could just stay in as Gross Models.
He kind of comes in for about a minute and then disappears.
So
who was that masked man?
Who was that masked man? Chris Williams. Hello. Stuart Bremer. Evening to everybody. Kimber 123. Chris Williams again. Alex, Kimber, Chris, Stuart Bremer. Sorry if I repeat everybody or miss you out, but we'll get there in the end.
Vincent's in. Hi, Vincent.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to keep my phone up and available and online so I can pick up your email. It's easy for me, you see, if I have a separate email account running at the same time, so I don't have to flick between screens. Kimbar says
it looks like we're organised. We're not organised.
We're not organised.
No. Never organised. You know that.
Right, so we can continue going down the list. Scott Sutherland from Orkney. Yes, got it right. Yes, Matthew Drake, or Phil Davis, or Police Matthew. You guys are really having a chat amongst yourself. Well, Jack, we'll just let you chat. We'll sit back and let you chat. Yeah.
You guys carry on. Me and Ted will just drink our beverages and let you get on with it.
Old boy says you can hear Foxx will be live from the toilet tonight. Yep, it's just a with his new microphone. We can hear.
Thankfully, for those who don't know, Dave Barker sent me a pot of Korean death noodles. They're not actually called Korean death noodles, but they may as well be. It was like this big. So I ate them yesterday and I posted up a video of it. And there were consequences. They were the strength. I can't remember the exact Scoville rating, but they were above jalapenos and just below the next one up on the Scoville scale. So there were catastrophic effects afterwards, but that's been gone now. Everything's back to normal. So
yeah, it's a good job this isn't smelly vision then.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through the messages. James Buckingham, first time here from New Zealand. Hey, do you know Will?
G'day, bro.
G'day.
Hello, chap, bro.
Yeah. Good luck. Well done in the America's Cup. It's all news, but it's all or not.
I don't know sport, so
yeah. Welcome, James. Welcome to from New Zealand. You must, if you know Will, you must go around and knock on his door and say hi.
Yeah, because only about 5 people live in New Zealand. So
about 5 people.
Will's one of them.
That's why we discovered this week. That's why everything's so expensive to ship to New Zealand, because there's only about 4 or 5 people live there, and carriers don't want to go. We'll drop it off when we're passing.
Yeah, so you guys in New Zealand, you suffer the high shipping prices and high delivery costs from anywhere because there's only 5 of you. So.
And just below him is Beyond Hope, who has a question which I haven't a clue what he's on about. Who do you think will be the last king or queen standing in Game of Thrones? It's more exciting than Love Island and less predictable.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I see it. It leads up like it's going to be Daenerys, but I think it's going to be a big thing at the end between Daenerys and Cersei. Cersei? No, Sansa. No, the queen with the son that killed himself. The one. I've forgotten the name now. I think it'll be a big show off at the end, but I don't know. But it may not be a queen.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
Yeah, I've never watched it, so I can't really say. I don't really know what you're on about. So, yeah, maybe I should have avoided that question. Maybe it should have been a question.
Tyrion will play a very important role towards the end, but I've not read the books. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I should have maybe just avoided that question and let it just move up quickly. Sorry, I saw a question, but yeah, I was too quick to read it.
Engage handbrake before using mouth. I think that's
yeah, engage brain before using mouth. Scott says, is Odo cleaned? I guess not. No, I think it's become a thing. I think it's become.
Yes, he has been cleaned.
He has.
There is now no actual bird poop on Odo at all. He is completely clean.
When are you going to weather it?
No, he's fine as he is. Odo is as his Odo is.
Yeah.
Doesn't need weathering. Won't fit on my dashboard though, so he's not a car mascot.
Right. Yeah. You could put it on shoulder, pirate style.
It's quite heavy. It's like resin. So.
Right. You couldn't put it on with a piece of wire then. Question: is Flex File Glue floor system just mech? I don't know what Flex File Glue floor system is, Stuart. Have you heard of it, Fox?
No, I know what MEK is. MEK is like a super chemically strong glue, but I don't know if the Flexi File system is MEK.
I do know mech, and I have used mech in the past. It's a brilliant glue.
It's an industrial level glue, isn't it?
Yeah, rather expensive, and if you leave the top off, it'll evaporate overnight. So you'll just disappear. So unfortunately, Stuart, we don't know that one. Maybe if anybody else is in the chat who does know, is I forgot the question. Is Flex File Glue floor system? Is it just mech?
Chris Smith says, "Evening all. Sorry I'm late. I have a note from my mum." He says.
Right. Yeah. Well, just stay behind after the chat, and we'll discuss it then.
Yeah, you're in detention now, mate.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
David Fox, here's a question. What's the best glue to use with photo etch on plastics and clear parts?
Yeah, PVA or clear parts. I wouldn't go near it with super glue because it'll just fog it. PVA or I can't think of a
There's Revell Contactor, which is basically kind of very similar to PVA, and there's Microscale Crystal Clear, which again is a very similar thing. So on clear parts, always you'll hear it called canopy glue, but it's basically clear PVA type glue. So like your craft glue, the white stuff that goes clear, that's perfect for canopies. For photo etch, you can use PVA, which isn't the strongest of bonds, but it's a good grip. Or you can use super glue, but if you use super glue, make sure you use you could use a thin one that you can touch to it and it goes into the pieces and holds them in place, but sometimes you might want to wiggle the part around. So you might want to use a thick one so you've got 5 or 10 seconds to move the part around. It's just very messy. Yeah,
I can't actually think of a point. I can't think of any way that you would be fixing photo etch onto a clear part. I'm wrong. Maybe it's a part of a kit that I haven't come across.
I kind of read it as photo etch onto plastics and clear parts.
So
clear parts, not photo etch onto clear parts.
Yeah, but
if you go photo etch onto a clear part, PVA every time.
Yeah, I know that some people have said that, and it does work. That super glue, if you coat your clear parts in clear or another varnish, it won't fog them. But do you really want to take that chance? Probably not. I wouldn't chance it. You only need a little scratch in the varnish, and it'll fog underneath that.
If you've used something like, say, the Pledge multi-surface wax /future /clear /2 times more shine, then that can be removed with anything with ammonia in it. So if you gloss coat your clear part and then put CA glue or super glue on it, and then it fogs up, you can just clean the piece with something with ammonia like glass cleaner, and it will just take the gloss coat off and take the super glue with it, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee it won't fog up. The thing that the CA glue fogs things up is the vapors that come off it.
Yeah, it's the vapors.
So if you've got a canopy and you put glue on the bottom and you stick it down, it's not the glue that's going to make the fogging, it's the vapor inside the cockpit where it can't gas out. That's how police use it to do fingerprints. Similar kind of idea. So it's never recommended to use anything but PVA. It's called PVA glue, white craft glue. Americans call it Elmer's glue. Microscale crystal clear. Revell canopy. I can't remember what it's called. It's Revell Contactor Clear is their canopy glue. Or you'll hear it called canopy glue. That's really all you ever want to use on clear parts, just to avoid fogging.
Yeah, going back to the previous question before, I've lost it now. I think it was Sprue said it was that applicator system we were on about before. Mr. Loth said it's a CA applicator system. So
okay,
it's probably not mech then. If it's
no, it'll be for CA glue.
Yeah,
because CA glue is always messy and it comes in little pots with big holes and you.
Yeah, I must look it up.
I've seen crazy Japanese models use these things that are about this long, and they go to like a hair thick point. So you just squidge glue out, and it goes all the way down this tube, and tiny little bit comes out.
Right. So already the flexi file says Chris Henderson CA glue. Yeah. All right. I'm just sort of spinning back through the chat.
Kimbar says sent Elmo's glue. No, it's called Elmer's glue. I'll put it in the comments. In the US, Elmer's glue is a brand of white PVA craft glue. It's basically glue that dries clear, and you can use it in dioramas for water effects and things like that.
Obviously, Mr. Loth seems to know what that photo etch stuff is. That flexi file stuff is. Said it's an expensive way to apply glue. So right, that's what you guys in chat are for, not just us. You guys are brilliant answering the questions better than us. Sometimes you do know more than us. Wood 68 says, what is the best liquid mask to use? I think one or two people have already said answered you in there. Best liquid mask. I've always used the Humbrol stuff. There's lots of it out.
I was going to say Humbrol Maskol. Have I got some here? I've got some somewhere.
Yeah, some people just use Copydex, which is, I think, what Humbrol Maskol is. It's just coloured pink.
It's just basically liquid Copydex. Not rubber. What's the word?
Yeah, latex.
Liquid latex. There's loads of different brands. Vallejo do one. I think Ammo do one. There's loads out there. You can also get, you can get them from art stores and stuff. But yeah, Humbrol Maskol, I've always used that just because I'm used to it. It's pretty good. It's a bit stinky, and it does end up drying out in the pot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it stinks.
However, depending on what you're using it for, if you're just using it to make little paint chips, you can also use toothpaste. You can use, I think some people have used mustard, possibly. Basically anything that will dissolve in water that won't damage the paint. So apparently toothpaste is quite popular on big things to do little tiny paint chips.
Yeah. There's loads of stuff out there. But the most common and easily available one would be Humbrol Maskol. That's what I always use. I don't use a lot of it. It's not very nice stuff to use. I tend to use it where there's lots and lots of things to cover up. So I'll just slap it on. I got it in. Yeah, I just slap it on. When I've done the masking around the edges and then some areas to cover up, I'll just slap it on with some Humbrol Maskol.
Sometimes if I've got an area like this to cover up and I've got tape around the edges and I want nice crisp edges, masking fluid is no good for getting a nice crisp straight edge. You'll struggle to get a straight crisp edge because when it pulls up, it's not uniform. So if you want a straight crisp edge, go for your masking tape if you can, or fret paper or something like that. But if you want to just maybe fill a recess or something like that you can touch up later, it's fine. But if you say got a square area like that, and I might mask the edges off, and instead of using loads of masking tape to fill it in the middle, I might just cover the whole area with mascol fluid just to cover that bit in the middle. So I'm not using tons of masking tape. The only thing to bear in mind with mascol is it does contain ammonia. So there's always the potential it may react with, it's quite rare, but it's not 100% guaranteed it won't do any harm to the paint if acrylic paints. So don't leave it on there for days and days and days. Basically, it's a case of get it on, let it dry, do your painting, give it 24 hours, and then get it off. Because if you leave it on there for weeks and weeks, say you half build something, you come back to it, it's always possible it will have had an effect on some acrylic paints, some colours and some brands. So it's not something you want to leave on there for a long time.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, Fox, I think it's brilliant for chipping. I used it on the Typhoon, on the wings and things like that for doing some chipping. Spray over it, and then you can just rub it off. The only thing with it is you keep finding it forever, the bits that you haven't rubbed off. So you'll continue rubbing it off for weeks on end.
Having said that, though, Ted, getting mascol off is the best thing in the world. It's the most. You remember when you were a kid at school and you got the white PVA glue on your hand and you'd peel it all off?
Yeah.
You paint the mascol on the model, you do all your painting, and then when it's all dried, you basically get an eraser or your thumb or something, and you just rub. The easiest thing to do is just rub the mascol, and it just peels off. But like Ted says, you'll finish your model, you'll go to photograph it, you'll put the photograph on Facebook 2 weeks later, then you'll see a little bit of mascol in the photograph that you didn't see with your eyes. Always the way. Always the way.
And you can keep all the bits and roll them in a ball, so it becomes that sticky, rubbery ball. Yeah,
good stuff. Good stuff. You can also apply it with a sponge. If you want to do chipping, you can apply it with the brush, but it will knack your brush. So don't use a nice brush. It can be quite hard to apply with things like cocktail sticks until you've got a dot of some of it on the end of the cocktail stick that's dried up a little bit, and that will help you pick up more. So if you're going to use, say, a cocktail stick for small chips, just put a bit on the end and give it 5 minutes just to congeal, and then you can use that as a sort of applicator. But you can do it with a sponge for good chipping effects. It's really good.
Yep, good. Yeah, it's good. As I said, there's plenty of stuff out there. Depends what you want to do with it. The next question underneath that one was from Ron Mack. What is better, post or pre-shading? I'd say it depends what you were doing. Depends what colours. I wouldn't say any was better than the other. No, there's not really an answer to that.
Yeah, it like you say, it depends what you're trying to achieve. If I'm painting something and I want to have shadowing along panel lines, then I'll do the pre-shading because it's easiest. You just do some, black lines over the panel lines and then do your paint on top. I've tried to do post shading to get the same effect with panel line shading, and I'm terrible at it because you've got to really control how much paint you put on, but it can look really good. So for things like panel line shading, it doesn't really matter which one you use.
No,
post shading is a bit more skilled, but it gives us a good result.
When you talk about post shading, I think you're more talking about the light modulation type effect, and I've never really mastered or understood that.
No, it can be both, because you can, if you're talking specifically about, say, panel line shading, it can be post or pre. It can be either. You can apply a darker color over the panel lines. It's just more tricky. But I do use post shading. So I've got an object. I'm trying to find an object. So I've got an object. This is an object, and let's say that's a panel line. What I might do is paint the whole thing in a primer color, say white or something. I'll do my dark paint for the line around there as a post shade, a pre-shade. Then I'll go over with my whatever color the model is, let's say gray. So that shows underneath. What I may then do is go in with my gray color and lighten a bit and do a bit more work in the center of the panel. So the pre-shading gives me the shadow, and the post-shading gives me the highlight in the middle. And I might do the same here and here just to change the contrast a bit from the flat base color. So you can mix it and match. There's no right and wrong, or one is better than the other, just different ways of having the same effect. I just find post-shading for panel line shadows a lot more tricky than pre-shading, because with pre-shading you can be as careless as you want because you can work the paint on the top to just get the shadow. But when you're doing, I forget right, post-shading, if you go wrong with the airbrush, you've messed up your whole paint job. So it depends what you want to use it for.
Yeah, as I said, I've never got to grips with that light modulation on stuff, so
I've tried it. I need to work on that because I'm not very good at it.
I think it's the scale of the model. I think the smaller the model, the better the effect, because I think light modulation is supposed to recreate the natural light or the light on the model. But when you get into bigger scales like I do, it doesn't really work, because I think the model itself is creating its own lights and shadows. So I think that's what's where I've been going wrong. But
question from Vincent, Mr. Liz Model Making. This one's for you, Ted, because I haven't got a clue. Question for the World War II aircraft builders: cockpits completely matte or with a very slight, not quite satin feel to it, so it retains some shine? I'm torn at the moment between the two. I don't really know, but when I've done aircraft, I tend to do it matte.
Yeah, I think
shiny undercoat metal and then the matte.
Yeah, no, I watched a program last night on. It was an old program. It was a Guy Martin one where he did the Vulcan bomber. I don't know if anybody else had seen that as well. A brilliant little program about the last flight of the Vulcan bomber, and I did notice on that the aircraft itself was shiny. It seems to be that most aircraft do come across as shiny, whether that's just the modern way of painting them, particularly preserved aircraft, or it's just the sunlight on the paint. Or what do you guys think? Should aircraft be painted shiny? Is that the right way to go about it? But certainly for cockpits, I would go with a matte, a flat colour. I think they look better as well. I certainly painted the Typhoon in a matte colour, and it looks good. But as for the outsides, I know you didn't ask about the outsides, which is something that sprung to mind at the same time. Particularly in the blacks. The blacks, yeah, most modern aircraft like the Vulcan bomber was painted all black inside.
The one thing I have noticed when I've seen inside aircraft cockpits, especially vintage ones, and I've not seen a lot, is that what was I in? I can't remember what it was. It was at the Aerospace Museum, and you could see inside the cockpit. You can see quite detailed. And from what I could see, the basic color scheme of the cockpit was really matte, but where you got like a satin or ever so slightly shine was where you had a panel, a black panel with dials and fascia on it. So that black metal square panel, that was a bit more shiny than the surrounding cockpit. So I think I've done that in the past on a model where I did that. I think I did the cockpit generally green and grey, I think colours like that, which is all matte. But for the little square panels of the fascia, I actually did them in a satin black. And it came out all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some people mentioned about audio, by the way, in the chat. I only caught a few comments. Are we having audio problems, people? Or does it sound okay?
Well, I think I've been out of focus as well, but hopefully I'm back into focus as well.
You're always out of focus, Ted.
I'm always out of focus.
You're always out of focus.
It's just to make the lines in my face and that look better. So if it's like you put a bit of a blur on this on the Photoshop, it makes me look more handsome. That's what it is. But
no, the sound is okay. Cool. It might have just been a glitch. Might have been a bit of YouTube going out of sync.
Sometimes it might be your internet connection just lagging a little bit. It soon catches up, I hope.
Yeah. YouTube does it by itself as well. Sometimes it just loses sync between the audio track and the video track, and it goes and then it kind of catches up.
Yeah.
What we should do, Teddy, we should all start talking like this, so people can't get the lip sync. You dishonor my family. I kill you.
Simon D says XH558. That was it. That was the Vulcan bomber. He says it's a repaint. Yeah. So yeah, it's probably a modern preservative type paintwork rather than a matte. So
actually, when you do see planes in places like the Air and Space Museum, they've got the Spitfires and stuff. They do have that shine to them. But I wonder, like you say, how much of that is the modern paint job? Because I'm sure when they were painted in real life during the war, they weren't given a coat of paint, a coat of lacquer and everything else. They've got primer and paint. But it may have been like cellulose paint, which can sometimes have a shine. So I wonder if they were shiny, or if they started off shiny but very quickly lost that shine and just took on a dull patina because of dirt and wear and use. I don't know. I'm no expert on the aircrafts, unfortunately. But every time I've seen an airplane in a museum, it's certainly got shine to it. But it could be because it's in a museum.
So is that one for the rivet counters? Is that the right way to display your aircraft, or should it be pure matte, not just the inside but the outside?
Then they need to get me in there with my massive sponge of chipping to make it look more realistic. A bit of gum wash.
Yeah. Kimbar says, can he use your Space 1999 theme tune as his?
Absolutely, because I just recorded it with my face, and it's not copyright me because I didn't write it. It's copyright ITC and the guy that composed it, who isn't sadly alive anymore.
I think it's your
Dad,
ringtone.
do what you want with it. I've put it on YouTube. I fully expect at some point somebody will probably slap me down and say you can't have that because it's copyright, but nobody has. So.
Not yet. No. Yeah. And if it's your if it's your ringtone, well, yeah. Is ITC coming to come you down?
Apparently, I'm out of sync with my lip sync. Like I think Alan says, bad. Northwest Model says bad 79 porn. Is there any other kind of 1979 porn?
While you're trying to get your lips in sync, I'll have a look and see what questions have come in via email.
Yes. Well, I do have a question from TK.
Go ahead with that.
It's not from TK. Somebody asked TK this question, and I'm doing it from memory, and I may get it wrong. So apologies, TK. If you need to correct me in the chat, please feel free. But the question was something along the lines of, if you're making a model and you need to prime it, there might be a situation where, for example, you need to use a gloss primer or a satin primer as opposed to a traditional matte primer. And the question, I think, if I remember it rightly, was something along the lines of, can you not just prime it with a matte primer and then apply a gloss coat or a satin coat varnish over the top? So you don't have to, get yourself a gloss or a satin primer. And I would say basically, if you want to do that, you can do that. It doesn't. If you say you're painting something with a metallic color and you need it to be gloss black before you paint the metallic color on, traditionally what you do is you'll prime it, then you'll paint it gloss black, and then you'll paint it your metallic color. However, you can now get gloss black primers like the one from UMP does one. So what you're saying is, can I spray it with a matte black primer and then put a gloss coat on it and then paint it? You could do. I don't think there's any harm in doing that, but you're kind of doubling up your workload because you've got to spray it primer color, then spray it gloss, and then you've got to paint it anyway. So you may as well just use a gloss black primer if that was the situation. Just use a gloss black primer. It does two things in one. Plus, then you're also not having a layer of primer and a layer of varnish and a layer of paint. The paint will stick better to the primer ultimately than it probably will do to the gloss varnish. Because although gloss primers are gloss, they still have a certain roughness to them, so paint can't hit, because that's the point of a primer. It gives the paint something to grip to, whereas a gloss varnish will be more hydrophobic to a certain degree than a primer. So I would say there's no harm in doing it. It's probably be absolutely fine, but I wouldn't go out and buy a primer and a gloss varnish when you can just get a gloss primer that does the one thing. Save yourself doing it twice, especially if it's a big model. You don't want to spray it twice when you can spray it once. But there's no harm.
And the more coats you put on, you're going to sort of eventually blot out your detail the more coats you put on. But that's a good point that you pointed out, that some people say, I never prime, I never paint, I never prime whatever my model. But yes, there is a case for primers, is that it highlights any defects you get. It also gives, as you pointed out, a key to hold the primer holds onto the plastic of the model, and it also holds on to the paint on top of that, so it's creating a bond between the two. And there is a fair chance that if you paint directly onto your plastic, it may never happen, but it can do, where the paint through handling or age wear will peel off. So yeah, there's people say they never prime, but I always do, and it's good for finding any defects as well. And as you say, if you varnish, it may not be as grippy for the paint to sit on top of it.
I've learned from experience, because when I was younger, I used to make models and just paint them. I didn't prime them. But when I've been making Gunpla, sometimes I'll do a Gunpla and I might have some inner frame parts and I'll just want to paint some little details rather than paint the whole thing. So I'll take the bare plastic and I'll just get my acrylic metallic paints and I might paint a tube or a pipe or a valve or something. And I've learned that if you paint it and you go wrong, you can very easily just remove the paint that's gone wrong with the cocktail stick, just gently rub it off, because there's no grip between the plastic and the paint, not much. So, I mean, I've got models that I made 30 years ago that were never primed and they're still absolutely fine, but they're not really handled. So if you're making a display piece that's not going to be handled and you're not going to be handling it after it's been painted much, you might be all right. But it's always better to use a primer coat anyway, because like Ted says, if you've been filling any seams or gaps, the primer coat can be used to make sure everything's flat and smooth before you paint it. And it's always good practice. You don't have to, but it's a lot better if you do.
Mm-hmm.
I would always say my first rule is prime, prime, prime. That's 3 rules, but it's 1 rule.
A question that's come in. Hi guys, another 2 minutes for you to use. Another question for us. They're all ticked. Yeah. When cutting from a sprue, when you make the first cut, do you use the same cutters as the final cut? Does using older, cheaper cutters help make my better ones last longer?
I get it.
I think I'm with you. I would just cut with the good quality cutters that you've got, rather than using 2 pairs. It wouldn't make them last any longer. If they're a good quality pair, they're going to last anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, because often when you cut the piece off a sprue, you cut a long piece of the tree left first, because you cut it there. Then when it's off, you go back and you trim it with the. So he's saying, can I do this with my crappy old pincers first, just to get it off the sprue, because these are all knackered, and then go in with the nice ones later to get rid of that little bit of nub? You could do. I mean, it kind of makes sense. It would make your nice ones last longer. There's no harm in that. Yeah, but I would just use the ones I've got. If you've got a decent pair of nippers, it'll last you years anyway.
Yeah. I could never be bothered looking around for the second set of pincers. I just end up using the same one.
I have enough tools and things lying on my desk when I'm at that stage of the build. It just becomes a war zone with files and sanding and nippers and tweezers.
I really must invest in a decent pair of sprue cutters myself, actually, because I just got these instrument type wire cutters. Pretty good.
In fact, I got some Tamiya side cutters like about 4 or 5 years ago, and they're still absolutely fine. They're a bit loose now. They're a bit slack, but they're still fine. They get stuff off the sprue, and I tend to leave a little bit of nub and then get rid of it with the blade anyway. So I don't use them for any fine detail work. So they're absolutely fine. They last you good few years.
Yeah. And a trick of Tony's, we have Tony Fairclough, Heligun 35. He was using a photo etch saw to cut some of his sprues as well, so it's not, you don't have to stick to your cutters. He was cutting fine pieces off in his latest video. You know, these find a sprue there, like this piece here, he would cut that off with the saw, which is a brilliant idea, because if you try to cut that with your side cutters or your sprue cutters, it bends the part and cause it to snap. So it's a brilliant idea. Use a bent part. Yeah, I'm a bent part. Yeah, so that's that one. Right, I'll have a look on my phone. See, I know we have another question, so that's answered that one.
Oh, we've got one actually in the chat.
Oh, right, go for that.
Question: how do you sharpen your side cutters?
I've never had
I sharpen them by just buying new ones because I'm far too lazy.
No, I've never had to.
They will, if they're good quality ones, they will last you a long time. And by the time they start to go funky, it's just as easy to get new ones and keep the old ones for really tough things that you're not too fussed about. You probably could sharpen them, but I have no idea about sharpening knives and things like that. Some of the people in the chat who are more, hardcore sharpening tools and things might be able to tell you. I guess you need a what do you call it, stone. I'm thinking to Skyrim now, because there's what's it called, the stone you sharpen things on. I can't think of it.
I would also think as well that if your sprue cutters, your side cutters, are decent quality, they would be hardened steel anyway. So you're going to need a diamond file to file them. Something like your sandy stick or something like that just won't touch them, won't go near them. It'll shine them up, but it won't sharpen them. So yeah, a whetstone, oil stone, something like that. But I would think for a quality one, you're going to need a diamond sharpener. Yeah. And if you get into that stage and your tool it's probably easier to go out and buy a new one. New set and start again.
If you go out and buy yourself some diamond sharpening things just for your cutters, you're going to use those once every 5 years, maybe. Just get new cutters. It's just that easy. You can sharpen them, but it's just not really worth it, to be honest. Things like chisels and things like that you want to maintain, but especially when they're like if I was sharpening that, it's kind of hard to get in there. So it's just not worth it.
Yeah. But if you can sharpen them, yeah, go on. Just try it.
Good question, though.
Yeah, if they're blunt and they won't cut, and you try and sharpen them and you do it all wrong, what have you lost?
Kimber says it's a whetstone. Yes, my Skyrim memories failed me. It's a whetstone for sharpening. People sharpen their chisels and things on whetstones. If you've ever watched a Japanese master making katanas and samurai swords, the guy that polishes them, because this blew my mind when I watched a man making, or he wasn't the guy making the sword, he was the guy that goes off and polishes it. They polish them to that beautiful sheen, because when you get it, it's just a chunk of metal. It looks really rough, like fifth form metalwork class. You've just made the thing for hanging a hanging basket off. He takes it and he basically just polishes it with a whetstone. So he's got it on a piece of stone and he's moving it back and forth at different grades of stone and water. It's incredible that you could polish something to a chrome-like sheen with a piece of stone. Blows my mind every time.
And then they put the usual trick, pull the hair out and slice the hair in half.
Yeah. If you've never watched it, go off to YouTube and find a video of people making proper Japanese samurai or katana swords. It's an amazing thing. It's just you have to watch it. Not right now, obviously. Finish this thing first.
Yeah. Ian Bottomley come up with a good point there. He said if you're not sure about sharpening your side cutters, what you need to do when you cut them, and these speaking of which, these don't meet, but they're all right for cutting plastic. If you sharpen your side cutters, you've got to make sure that the edges meet when you come to put them together. If they don't, you've polished too much away and you've ruined them. So that's a good point.
I guess Alec in chat says you're never going to sharpen hardened steel side cutters. Well, you're not. No, it's not going to happen. Yeah.
So that's it. I've often remember when you used to buy chisels and things from B&Q and you have to go try and sharpen them. I mean, you just ruin them. You never get the angles right. So
Zadster also makes the point you just made: is the cutting surfaces will probably not be aligned after sharpening. The trick with side cutters is that the surfaces are usually either they step or they're lined up perfectly. And the best side cutters will have really, really carefully designed, aligned blades so that when it cuts through your plastic, it doesn't mangle the plastic. Some of the most expensive ones you can find, you can take right to the piece of the model you're cutting off. So there's a piece of tree there, and you can just go snip, and there'll be nothing left, almost. If cheap pair of cutters or wire, could you do that? There'll be a mangled mess. So you're probably just going to mess up the alignment on the blades anyway. So again, it's just not worth the hassle, to be honest.
So Dave, where's the rum gone back? He says the last thing he wants to do is sharpen anything because he spends all day sharpening knives. So we now know that if you want anything sharpening, you can send them to Dave. Where's the rum gone?
Well, he is a butcher.
Yeah.
Dave had a packet with load of like really nice beef burgers and meat in it.
Yeah.
You must have accidentally not sent me that enormous packet of meat.
Yeah, if you email me, I'll send him an address for a delivery of steak. And
I don't think Dave's too far from me, actually.
Yeah,
so
it's barbecue time, isn't it? Yeah.
Vincent, Mr. Lens Model Making says those Japanese whetstones are worth thousands. I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised.
They're probably very, very old as well. Proper one. But go and watch somebody making a samurai or katana sword. It's the most amazing thing ever. Considering they just do it by eye.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered that about sharpening side cutters. I did have another question once I get my phone to start again, once again to recognise my thumbprint. It's a question from Dave, the knife sharpener. He's building the UARD Profit Pack BF109 F2. Nice model. He's finding it a dream to build and everything fits fantastic. All the photo etch is stunning. It's a real pleasure to build. So that's the UARD Profit Pack BF109 if everybody's interested.
Ted, would that be Edward?
Did I say Edward?
I love the way you pronounce stuff.
Edward. What did I say? I'll have to listen. Edward. Yeah, them. So his question is, anyway, dismissing that, his question is, what kit have we enjoyed making and why? Thinks back to the depths of time. Trying to think back.
Think back in black and white, Ted. Think back in black and white.
Yeah, I can only think of, yeah, because my mind doesn't work that far back, apart from nonsense and rubbish. I quite enjoyed building the Oshkosh. It was fun because it went together easily. There weren't a lot of parts to it. It was good to paint. It's a nice subject that you can sort of add to. Do lots of scratch building if you want. Lots of bits and pieces for it. Lots of lots of stuff to add for a diorama because there's loads of it out there. That's just the first one that comes to mind. I really enjoyed building the Oshkosh. Over to you, Mr. Fox.
Well, I still haven't built my Bandai Space Battleship Yamato yet, so I can't say if that's. I can imagine that will be my favourite. Of all the kits I've ever built, it would have to be the Fine Molds 172nd Millennium Falcon, because it was a beautiful kit. It's not the most accurate anymore, but it was at the time the most accurate big Millennium Falcon kit. It's absolutely beautiful kit. Fine Molds just make some of the best. Well, they kind of did. Some of the best moldings. The detail was fantastic. It went together like a dream. It was like a Bandai kit, but that you glue together. It was that good. And that was a joy because it wasn't complicated. Although there's like over 1,000 parts, and some of them are like literally that big. Parts, the A22 parts, the ones that ping across the room, they're tiny. But it was fantastic. I built 2 of those. So I would say that's my favorite because it just made sense. There were no seam lines to fill, none of that nonsense. All the seam lines were taken into consideration so that where there was a seam line, it was actually a panel line, so you never saw it. And it was great. And it is, if you want to get one now, it's actually the Revell Master Series Millennium Falcon. The 300 quid one is the Fine Molds Millennium Falcon. So if you want to experience that, Fine Molds don't make them anymore, or can't make them because they don't have the license, but they do make them for Revell, who licensed them as their Master Series. So if you've never tried a Fine Mold Star Wars kit, glue kit, get the Revell Master Series because that's what they are. They're just reboxed, and that Falcon was just divine. The Bandai Perfect Grade that's not out yet is rumored to be a lot more accurate, but it was a beautiful kit.
I might take you up on that.
Take me up on what? Sorry.
Build that Fine Molds kit.
Well, you would like to buy that to build that.
I might take
you would enjoy it because it's lots and lots of tiny parts, and it's not. There's lots of tubes. There's tubing.
Ooh, tubes.
But it's a beautiful kit. It's one of the. I don't know because I've made a few of their kits, and up until that point, I'd never touched a Fine Molds kit. And the Falcon was the first one I ever built. At that point, I was hooked on Fine Molds kits. I'm like, wow, these are brilliant. And then, of course, they lost the license and stopped making them. So, but then Revell got it. So
yeah, I bet there'll be one turns up on. I bet there'll be one turns up on eBays and things like that.
You can probably get a Fine Molds one now, but the price would be through the roof. When they were available, when Fine Molds were making them, they were like 300 to 400 quid. Then they stopped, and then Revell got the license and contracted. My understanding is they contracted Fine Molds to continue making them, but they're labeled as Revell kits. But it says Fine Molds on it. And they are about the same price. They're about, I can't remember if it's like 300 or 399. They're not cheap. They're sort of prestigious kits, but it really is worth it. It really is worth it because it's such a wonderful kit. And the only thing you're going to get close to that is the Bandai one that isn't out yet, and that's about 399, 400 quid when it comes out. If you can get it in the UK. If you're in the US, you can get it quite a bit. In the UK, not so easy.
Just a question then, on that note, a question for you and a question for everybody else. If you saw a rare model available anywhere, wherever it's available, it was rare, it's expensive, it was unmade, it was in the box, would you make it or would you keep it?
Many years ago, I have in my stash a AMT Ertl Deep Space Nine runabout kit, which they stopped making in the late 90s, I think, early 2000s. And it went out of production, and they suddenly went for crazy money on eBay. Like it's a $20 kit, and they were selling it for hundreds of pounds. And I thought, well, it's out of production. I'll buy two. So I bought two. One was for keeping for the future, and one was for making. I started making one of them, and it all went horribly wrong. So I ended up just giving it to someone else. And a couple of months ago, I actually got the one out of the loft, and I'm going to make that one because they haven't really gone up in value. They're still about $20 or $30. So it's not worth much. I'm just going to keep it. I'm just going to make it.
Yeah, there's a lot of reaction to that one in the chat. A lot of people have said they'd make it. Some people have said, like you, they'd buy two. But if there was only one available, it was rare and it was expensive, would you make it?
I think I'd probably make it because I'm not a collector of kits, although I've got a big stash. I'm not the kind of person that buys a kit to then hold it for ages and then sell it for more money. I'd rather just make the kit.
Yeah.
Because if it's that rare, I can say, I have this in my collection here. Look, there it is. It's in my collection, and only a few people have got one of these. And if I was the kind of person that then wanted to just hold on to a kit and sell it, it would probably be more profitable to make it and sell it, because then it's a rare one-off piece of a completely built, as long as it's good.
Well, I'm of the same opinion. I think if a model kit became rare, it would be better to see it built, and there would be less built than there would be unbuilt in boxes, if you know what I mean. Yep. People would be happy to see it built. There's one of them rare fine molds kits that you never see, and it's built and painted. Yeah. So but there'll be half a dozen in boxes that people just look at the box art.
I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is with any kit like that as well, like I was saying, the fire molds Falcon itself was 300 quid when it was available. They also had a completely built and made one, which you could buy instead, which was 900 quid. Mm-hmm. So if you're in it to make money, you could just get the rare kit and build it and paint it and then sell it. And you probably make more rather than waiting 10 years, 20 years for it to actually be worth something as a kit. You could do that. But I mean, I sell my builds anyway, but not all of them. But something like that, if it's that rare, my runabout, when I finished it, I'm not selling that. That's me. That's mine. It's going in my display cabinet.
It becomes, as you said, it becomes a rarer model built. Yeah. Paul Parker said, "Hi Paul, glad to see you in. He'd make it. Otherwise, he'd be a collector or a trader rather than a modeler." Which I think is a good point. Yeah, that's good.
It depends. I mean, you can be both. You can be a collector and a trader, but I think for me, I'm a maker. I'm not a retailer. I'm not in the business of collecting something because it's rare and then selling it. I'd rather just I want it because it's cool and I want to make it. Mm-hmm. Which explains why my stash is all full of stuff that I go, I need that because it's cool and I need to build it. And my brain goes, you can't afford it. I'm like, I've already bought it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
Right. So we've answered that question.
That was almost words then, Ted.
Yeah. Sorry. Jamie Bourne is building his model soldiers again. Is asking how to paint World War II British shoulder uniforms with leather jerkins and what would be good for this. There is a leather set out there for painting leather. AK or MIG, I think, do one. Maybe even Life Colours. I'm sure there's a set for painting leather. Somebody might in the chat might be able to help us with that one.
I think Ammo do a leather set, but I'm not 100% sure. I could be wrong. I could be thinking of something else.
I've certainly seen a leather set out there, but it would be worth a bit. Have a look around the eModels website, see if they've got one. But there is a leather set. Painting leather
is kind of one of those skills. It's like doing non-metallic metals. It's one of those skills that you can get it right, or you can get it so it just looks brown. So your best bet would be to get on the YouTubes and just and have a look around and see how other people are doing, because there's so many different ways of painting leather. I've never been able to paint it to look fantastic.
And there's so many different shades of leather as well, and leather wears, it sort of scuffs the top, becomes a different colour underneath. People are coming through saying that AK do a set, AK Figures series, Life Colour do a leather set. So there's plenty out there.
There's so many different textures as well. Like if you've got like a faded and worn leather, that's where you can involve dry brushing if there's texture in the model. If you're doing, say straps and frogging and things like that, that may be where you want to perhaps use oil paints, so you can get that nice shading and blend between the different tones of brown. So I'd have a look on the YouTubes and just have a little bit of research on there and see how different people are doing it. Especially on figures, it tends to often be a lot of oil paint work, but you can do it with acrylics. I've never been great at it. I can do a belt, bit of leather strapping
yeah.
here and there.
I think around 135 scale, you get away with painting it brown, and that'll do for painting leather. But,
I mean, I've done things. I won't get out of my cabin. I've done things where, for example, I had a character with a courier bag, a knapsack. It was brown leather. So all I did was I painted it a medium browny colour, like a Tamiya red brown. Gave it a wash and some blacks to get the dark colour in the recesses, and then just did some dry brushing of a lighter brown colour, just very gently around it, and that helped blend in. That helped highlight the edges, but also give some fading and blending to the flat areas where it goes between the light and the dark brown. And you can use multiple shades. Often dry brushing is quite nice if you want a slight dry textured worn effect.
Kimba says, what's the most we've spent, or it's a question for everybody, what's the most we've ever spent or would we spend on a kit? I think I wouldn't have a limit on the amount I would spend. It would just depend what the kit was and how much I wanted it. I could spend anything from 20 quid to 500 quid. But it's depending on whether I have the funds available at the right time that I want the kit, and it needs to be spare funds rather than sort of scrimping, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Yeah, I would look around. Yeah, if I was nipping in the local hobby store or anything like that, I saw a kit and it was the right price, I'd buy it if I wanted it. But I tend to buy them to build rather than buy them to store.
Yeah, I try to have that mentality, but my stash tells me I'm storing them at the moment. Yeah. I suppose the two most expensive ones I've ever done. One was the eModels Falcon, because that was 320 something quid, and that's going back. This is going back 5 or 6 years. 320 something. The most expensive kit I've ever done, though, isn't really a kit, but I just had to have it, and it was the Lego UCS Superstar Destroyer, which was 499 quid.
Oh yeah, some of that.
The 4.5 foot long, 3.5 foot long Superstar. Yeah, that was like 499 quid, and I was like, I need that in my life, and I bought it.
Yeah,
I was an idiot at the time. I had the money. I was like, I can afford it. Fine.
For Lego, what's that as a children's toy is becoming expensive. Some of them kits are phenomenally priced.
Well, the UCS kits are different in that they are very limited edition. They run them for like maybe 2 years, and they're expensive to start with. They're the Ultimate Collector series, so they're usually of certain things. They're often the Star Wars kits and things like Slave One or a Snowspeeder and stuff. They'll release it. They'll have it for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and then they'll just stop it, and it will never come back into production. Mm-hmm. So the kit I bought for 499 quid, I think 5 or 6, 7 years ago, that I built. I didn't keep it boxed. I'm a maker, so I just built it. You can now buy it. That is now selling boxed and unopened, or even made and put back in the box for upwards of £1,000 or more, because it's they did a Millennium Falcon, and UCS Millennium Falcon quite a long time ago, and it was again about 300-400 quid. That now goes for thousands and thousands of pounds, because they only produce them for 2 years or thereabouts, and then they just stop. They might re-release a new version of it, but those original UCS kits, they go for thousands. It's like 5,000 or 6,000 quid now for that UCS Millennium Falcon.
I think the one thing that was worth pointing out, though, is that you could spend £10 on a kit. You could spend £1,000, £1,000 on a kit, but it's the enjoyment that you get out of it. You can get just as much enjoyment out of a £10 kit. Build it, paint it, build it in an afternoon, and it's done. And you can enjoy it phenomenally. Or you can spend 500 quid on a kit, and it could take you months to do. It's sort of, and you could still you could enjoy it just as much as that £10 one. It's just the length of time that it takes you to build. And obviously, a £10 kit is going to have less parts in it than the £500 kit.
Yep. Dave, why's the rum gone? Barker says, the most I paid was 35 quid for the Bandai speeder bike. Sergeant Bow says, Dave, that's because you spend too much money on noodles for Foxx. I have to give Dave credit, though. He said he was going to send me a couple of pots, and he sent me one, but that's because he kept one and ate it himself, so and filmed it. So Good on you.
And Tony Black says most of his stash was £10 for eBay auctions. He gets some cracking bargains out there. Yeah, we just need to look around. Yeah,
it's like when I went to Telford last year to the model show. You know, you wander around and there's all the stores there, the official stores selling stuff, but there's also these little stalls hidden in dark corners where there's some 70-year-old guy there, and he's got just a shelf packed with this chaotic pile of just random stuff, manufacturers you've never heard of who haven't existed for 40 years. And there's like 30, 40, 50-year-old kits in piles, and they're like a fiver. One guy was saying every kit on the shelf, £2. And some of them were really old vintage kits that are probably a lot of hard work, but it's £2. So, yeah.
Erwin the Vegan Dutchman says it's true about having fun no matter what the price. Yeah, in my old model boat club, there was some guys that used to come down there, and they were there for years and years and years, and they only ever had one kit, and they were building a ship that never seemed to get built. But it was the interaction. They were able to come down and they talk about it, talk about what they were doing, encourage others to do it. They, encourage new people, new kids that used to come along to the club and show them their skills. But they'd never actually built a kit themselves, but they enjoyed taking part as such. And that's what it's all about. It's not a cost, it's about what fun you get out of this hobby.
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to look at model making, and it is, no matter how you want to look at it, it is an expensive hobby. It's an expensive hobby, but you can get the bargains. You don't have to spend a fortune. If I buy an expensive kit, it's only really because it's a subject that I really want that kit. If it's the only kit available of a particular subject that I really want, then I'll get it. You know, if it's whatever it might be. If it's just if there's a kit I really want and it's £500, but there's also another one for say a lot less, but it's the same subject, I might be like, well, I might not go for the expensive one. I'll if there's just one kit of a subject and it's the only one there is and it's £500, I'm in if I want that particular thing. So it just depends. It's more like that. I need that kind of scenario for me.
Yeah.
But my current state in life, I can't afford to do that anymore. I have to be really careful nowadays. So when I was, a working man, I had my job and I got my paycheck and I'm an idiot and I've got loads of money in the bank. I'm like, yay, my paycheck's coming. I can go and spend it all. And then it's like, oh, did I pay the bills? Oh, wait.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's
don't follow my example.
Which comes first, the bills or the hobby? The bills or the hobby? And I think that's what people. We had a bit of recession a few years ago, and I think we're still in recession now. But the first thing that was to bite the dust when it came to paying the bills was a hobby. Yeah. Whatever your hobby, be it gardening, model aircraft, models, anything, that would take a hit first. But things that would get a bit easier. And
I will be honest to say the one thing that does frustrate me is that I do see sometimes you see people who do spend a lot on a particular model or something like that will get loads of stick for it. So I've got this model, blah, blah, and people will give them stick. And I don't think that's right, because at the end of the day, ultimately, not everybody has the same amount of disposable income. So to someone who can maybe stretch to a 30 or 40 quid kit once a month, then seeing someone buy a £400 or £500 kit every other month is quite frustrating, and you can't ignore that. But at the end of the day, though, it can be as expensive as you want. So if somebody can spend that kind of money on something expensive, then I'm happy for them. If they can afford, £300-400 on a ludicrously expensive model, I'm not going to judge them for that. I'm going to say, brilliant. If you can afford it, go for it. If you can't afford it, you can have just as much fun. There's no right or wrong how much you can spend. It's what you can afford to spend. And I actually think for people who can't afford to buy the big expensive kits, I think they potentially get more out of their smaller, less expensive kits, because they can't afford to buy these lots of big kits all the time. So they'll make the most of what they've got. I'm the same. I can't afford to buy lots of big kits at all. I'm quite poor. Let's just be honest. So I will get a £20 kit, and I will work on that like it cost me £500. So I will love it, and I will build it carefully, and I'll make the most of it, and I'll get more enjoyment out of it, even though it's maybe a simpler kit than something else. So,
to be honest here, this it was because of shortage of cash when the kids were growing up, things like that. It's because I was short of cash that I really got into scratch building. because it was cheaper to go out and buy a sheet of plastic and build something from that than it was to go out and buy the purpose-made item. Because I'd look at something, whatever it be, I'd look at an item and think, yeah, that's 20 quid to buy online or wherever. I buy it from the shop. I bet I could make it. And so I'd go and get the piece of plastic, and I'd go and look around the house, find some bits and pieces that were a general shape, and that's how I got into scratch building, through necessity. Really, just developed it from there. That's how it starts. So you don't have to go out. You can spend 20p on a sheet of plastic and build something that you would have to buy ready-made for 30 quid. So yeah, go out and do it. Right. Right. Craig, it's 10 o'clock already. We've been on for an hour.
Should we get to showing off what's in the store then, Ted?
Yeah, should we go and have a look at what's in store?
Yeah, so we'll have a look at what's in store.
Let's have a look at what's in store. And in the meantime, now I can't see your writings when I'm screen sharing.
Well, if you lock it to you, I can keep an eye on the chat.
Yeah. Cancel that.
I may have to briefly step away from the microphone for 30 seconds, but
yeah. Right. I think it's locked on me. So go to screen share that, and we have the first page of the eModels hobby store. I think that's the offers. Go and have a look at what's on offer this week. There's a very nice Tacom 135 French armoured car there. A couple of things that are still on offer from last week. Is that the offers page? Yeah, that's the offers. Right. Oh, that was Tacom. Right. So, right. Let's have a look. We've had a look round before we came on air tonight, and we found a few things of interest, or we hope they're going to be of interest tonight. Army Painter primers. I was going to put that one first, but never mind. We've got the Army Painter primers. Somebody was asking a question before about them, about different types of primers, but this is the full range of Army primers. And I think if Foxx is back at his microphone, which I guess he isn't, I think he's already used these.
I am returned.
Oh, right. Yeah, we're just talking. I flicked on this one first, unfortunately. We were going to leave it till the end.
Yes.
Army Painter primers. Now, I understand you've already used these in some of your builds, and
yes,
you found them quite good.
Yeah, I used the matte black one on Theagle for nose of the eagle, because I needed a rattle cam primer, and it was actually really good. It's really, really good stuff. If you're in the market for a rattle cam, give these ones a try. They all come in different colours, lots of lovely colours, quite a good range of colours actually. But there's sometimes times when you don't want to have to get the airbrush out to do your priming, and I have no problem at all with rattle. I actually kind of prefer to use rattle cam primers a lot of the time just for speed. There are times when I'll need to use an airbrush one, obviously, but you know, I have no problem with rattle cam primers, and these are actually really, really good stuff.
Yeah, and if you haven't got an airbrush, this is the go-to option. And no cleaning up either.
But especially in the spring and summer months when the weather's nice outside, I could sit with my airbrush and prime a model for a few hours, or I can go outside with a big piece of wood, some bits of foam, and a rattle can or two, and just prime in the garden. It's great. Out in the sun, not a problem, and it's a lot faster.
Yeah. So that's it. Paints. Right, the next one, we've had a look at some kits. Batwing, look at that one. That's something unusual. That's new in stock.
I'm Batman.
The Mobius 125th.
I'm Batman.
Batman v Superman. Batman v Superman.
Don't say Superman. Don't talk about Superman. Superman's rubbish. Batman's awesome.
All right, Batman v Superman. Two superheroes battling against each other.
That was a terrible movie.
Is there something in this story I need to know?
No.
No.
This is from Batman Dawn of Justice. I don't know what the Batman Dawn of Justice is. I have to admit to this. I don't know if it's a game or a movie or what. But at the end of the day, it looks kind of cool. It's Batman. You can't go wrong with Batman. I'm Batman.
And it says it's, I'm just reading there, it says the wingspan is 18 inches and it can be built in a few different ways. A VTOL and the wings to be stored in the upright manner.
Oh, it is from Batman v Superman. Yeah, it's a terrible, terrible film. Don't go and watch the film, but it's an awesome looking Batwing.
Makes for some nice ideas. Next one. We found a few car kits in the.
Get your 70s cheesy music.
Yes, get 70. Yeah, all these American sort of huge sort of Cadillacs. This is the monogram 125th Cadillac lowrider. I remember we looked at the Starsky and Hutch one a few weeks ago, didn't we?
If you're making a 1970s diorama, lowrider.
Would you do it in that colour?
Oh, you could go much better than that. Where I used to work, we had a basically it was full of American old cars, and they were all being hot rodded up. And some of the paint schemes were incredible. There was one that had basically a fish scale effect all over it, and all these chromatic golds and purples. Yeah, if you've got a low rider, you're going to pimp your ride. You're going to make it the pimpiest colours. So purple's a top for that.
Yeah, nice colour for it.
And who doesn't like American sort of 1970s, 80s American cars? That's what 1970s American cars.
Yeah, I went to a car show. I don't know if I mentioned it last week. I went to a car show with my son a couple of weeks ago, and there was a few American cars there of this era, and they were huge. Bench seats in the front. They could sit about 7 people in them.
There's a reason they were described as having ocean-going suspension.
Mm-hmm. They'd rock, and you get seasick in them.
Yeah. I just got a thing for big old American cars. You can't go wrong. And yes, that is basically a pimp-mobile.
Yeah, but
Huggy Bear.
It just lift the hood. See what I did there? The hood. Yeah, and there was a huge power plant underneath. That was the days probably when fuel was so cheap. It didn't matter how big your car was.
Describes them as land yachts.
This a muscle car, the Corvette Coupe Yenko 2-in-1.
Corvette.
69 Corvette. Yellow, maybe not.
Do whatever colour you want.
Yeah. One plastic kit, one 25th scale as well. Yeah, you could have a disc full of these. You could have a shelf full. Do them all.
Yeah, whenever I see Corvettes, I always think of astronauts, because they were always given things like Corvettes and Stingrays and stuff as cars.
Right.
So it's like, your proper right stuff astronauts. So hey, if you could build some kind of astronaut style diorama around this. But it's just look at the shapes. I love me some American muscle cars.
Motor City Muscle. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can imagine some disco music going on in the background, can't you? Through a ghetto blaster.
Yeah, ghetto blaster. A bit early for that one, but yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, it's no Plymouth Superbird and it's no Hemi Cuda, but you can't go wrong with a Corvette.
I think we've got another one. A truck. Revel monogram 125 Ford pickup. Now this one can be rat-rodded. Is that right? Ratted.
Good girl.
Yeah.
Good effort.
Yeah, you could rat-rod this. You could do some weathering on it. Remember that book we showed last week about the weathering cars? You could use that in conjunction with this and really weather this one up, make it all rusty, lower it, do all sorts with it. Be a nice size of a model to have a go at. Yeah,
I mean, the beauty of that one is because it's kind of got the modern wheels in it, like it's an urban street car, but you could, if you're doing a junkyard scenario, it's a classic old American truck design. You could weather it and rust it and horrible. You could either rat rod it or you can make it a junker. There's a lot of potential in there. Trucks are cool. Pickup trucks are cool. No use in the UK pickup trucks, but they still look cool.
Now, I know we've already had a discussion about cutters. These are the Xuron high precision scissors. Now if you want a pair of quality cutters, these are going to be fill your need. And they're also, I think Foxx pointed out before, they're made for use if you've got hand problems. Ideal. They're ideal for users with erratic hands, and they'll cut soft metals as well.
Yeah, they're kind of designed with ease of use in mind, but they're quite fine. So you might not necessarily want to use it for your everyday sprue cutting needs, but when you're doing real fine cutting work, they'll come in really, really handy because they're so sort of, you know, tailored to not require a lot of manhandling. So as it says in the description, you know, if you've got, say, limited hand mobility or arthritis or something like that, the same as with me with my trigger airbrush, these kind of things are designed so that if you've got, you know, issues with hand mobility, there might be a good option for you.
Yeah, and it looks a nice sharp end to them as well. So you, I would guess that they were cut right down the end, because you get some side cutters, they'll cut in the middle fine, they'll cut this in the throat fine, but they won't cut at the tip. The tips won't, you know, you push them together and the tips will splay. But these look as though they're going to be a real nice tight pair of scissors cutters. Yep. So
just going back to the Corvette, by the way, Sergeant Bones says it's got to be yellow to be a Yenko. So yes, we'll have to do it yellow.
Got to be yellow, has it? Right. Have a look at some more tools. People are always asking about photo etch benders. This is a nice little set. It's 300mm, quite a long set.
I thought when I first saw this picture, I thought it was a keyboard of some sort. I'm like, why have they got a synthesizer on there? What? And then I looked at it properly because my eyesight's terrible today. I'm like, oh, it's a bendy thing.
Yeah, it's just one. They do come in different sizes, but the bigger the size, the more options you get, obviously. And these are ideal. I never used to have one. I just used to bend mine with a pair of pliers and a straight edge. But since I got one, I've never looked back, really. They're real handy to get because you can just put your part in there, clamp it down. In this case, they're using a safety razor blade, bends the part up brilliantly, nice and sharp, nice and crisp. A real handy item to have. I know it looks a little bit expensive, but once bought, you're not going to wear it out.
No, it's going to last you forever. And truth be told, these kind of tools are always, you can get little cheap ones, but they're never very good. These kind of tools are obviously precision made, and they're precision tooled. So you do pay a bit of a premium for these, but they are worth it, especially if you're doing a lot of photo etch. You're going to need something like this. I've done photo etch with pliers and metal rulers, and it's just ass. Trust me. If you want proper precise bendage, you're going to want something like this. There are different sizes available, obviously.
Yeah, there are different sizes. Have a look around the eModels website, and you'll find different sizes and different use. Something to suit your needs in there.
Yes. Miskatonic University podcast, referring to when we were talking about the American muscle car, says, "I love those terms with the British accent."
The hood.
And now a Hemicuda.
Oh, I say.
Do you like my Plymouth Superbird? With its NASCAR cone on NASCAR nose and 6 foot tall fin on the back. Most excellent.
Yeah. One of these American cars that was at this motor show had sort of huge like air intakes along the side, air intakes along the side of the bonnet. They were like a Spitfire, the exhaust pipes of a Spitfire. It had doors along the front, along the wings, and then when you open the bonnet and had a look, open to the hood for our American friends, and you had a look inside, they serve no purpose whatsoever.
Yeah, when I was rodding my Fiesta, I was debating whether to put an air grabber on the bonnet that doesn't do anything. It's just an air grabber, and I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. That's getting too involved. I just want to paint it. I don't want to start welding things on.
Yeah.
Well, there was very nearly an air grabber on my Fiesta bonnet.
As if it's not noticeable enough.
Well, yeah, there is that.
There's a photo etch tool again. And the last one, I think that's it. Yep.
Angus Allett says he's got to get the boy to preschool. Cheerio. Thanks for coming, Angus.
Thanks, mate. Yep. See you all again.
If anybody else has left and we haven't said goodbye, apologies. We don't see a lot of the chat because it goes past so fast. We miss most of the chat, to be honest.
I'll get myself back and forth.
Post a question, put it in capitals, because we see about 5% of what goes on in chat. So,
that's good. And I think we're back. We're back. That's what's in store. Go and have a look at the eModels website, emodels.co.uk.
Mm-hmm. Don't forget, of course, to check out the office section as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of good stuff in there. It's changed and updated regularly, so there'll be things in there that are on there for a day, things that have got special offer prices for a week, for a month, for 3 days. It varies from product to product, so always have a look on the office section. You never know what might turn up, from kits to tools to paints to books to all kinds of stuff.
It's all in there. Yeah, there's lots of stuff.
Have you unlocked from you, by the way, Tedward?
No, I think it's back on you as well. Just say something. Oh, you're not going to say anything.
Oh, sorry, I'm saying it. La, 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 la.
Yeah, see, yeah, it's working. It's back to you. I'm just checking the emails.
Little structure. Anybody in chat have any questions while we're back off the what's in store section?
Yeah, I thought we had a question, but it's just a threatening letter from the. It's just a pay, threat. Yours sincerely. Yeah, never mind. Thank you.
Yeah, we didn't need to know about that one.
Yeah.
Yes, anybody in chat got any? Oh, here we go. Question. Chris Smith.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, Chris. I saw this one before. I missed it. It had gone up. So yeah.
Okay. Chris Smith says, question: off to Greece tomorrow. Should I take a model with me to build, or avoid a divorce and leave everything at home?
Ooh,
yeah, I'm not. I'm single and unaccounted for, so I'd say take all the models. But I'm single and unaccounted for, so I'll pass this one to Ted.
The thing is, when you're going to find time to do any modelling, because you'll either be lazing on the beach and it'd be too hot to do anything, or you'd be slapping it on and getting drunk in the bar. So when are you going to get a chance to do any modelling?
Yeah.
And
slapping it on in the bar.
Slapping it on in the bar. Yeah. And you need to leave space in the suitcase so that if you find anything out there, you can bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why if you ever go to Japan, you need to like 14 suitcases, because you will come back with all the things.
Yeah. Buy more suitcases when you're out there. Yeah. So I wouldn't bother taking any, because you're not going to find time to do it. There's a fair chance you're going to spill by the time they've thrown your suitcases all over in baggage handling, they're going to burst your glue bottle, and then everything will be covered in glue or paint. And
do bear in mind, of course, if there are objections raised on day 2 of the holiday and you're there for 2 weeks, that's going to be a really long 2 weeks. It's not worth it.
No.
Another question from Nate Bliss. How do you sand tiny little nubs without sacrificing them to the hungry one, i.e. the carpet monster? I tend to not use tweezers if it's a really tiny part, like, for example, with the Fine Moments Millennium Falcon Part A22. If you've built that kit, you know the Part A22. I don't use tweezers because they'll go and fly off and you'll lose it forever. I find the easiest thing to do, if it's a tiny part with a nub, don't even sand it. Just press it down with your finger so the little bit with the nub is showing. So you just press down on it and just get your knife.
Yeah.
Well, actually, don't use your normal knife. If you've got a normal knife, you can use it. But if you have one, get yourself if I can get it out, a chisel edge knife like that. So you can have the piece here on the desk, press down with your finger, and you just go shoom and trim it that way. And that way, the piece isn't going to ping off. If you're doing a tiny piece like a tube, where that's not an option, I've found if you're, say, for example, you've got a very thin piece like a tube or something like that, or a rod or a fuel pipe or something, and it's really bendy, and if you're trying to sand it, you can't really, you can try and get the nub off with the blade if you put it flat on the desk and, get your knife and run it along. That can work. But if you need to sand it, I've actually found sanding tiny parts easier with a small metal file than it is with a sanding stick or a piece of sanding paper. For some reason, tiny tubes and tiny parts are easier to sand with a metal file. It's the only things I will sand with the metal.
I've got some really tiny things on here on this submarine. I'll take it apart. There will be an update about the submarine following very shortly, and I'll keep it as a surprise as to how and when we're going to do that. But if you're following the submarine build, make sure you subscribe to the eModels YouTube site, and also press the little notification, the little bell, so that when things happen on the eModels YouTube page, you'll get a notification about it. But yeah, going back, I don't know if you can see these really tiny hand wheels on here. When I cut those off the sprue, as Foxx says, I use the edge of a knife just to file the nubs off, and it's going to be so small that you're not really going to be able to see if any of the nubs are left anywhere. So that's, yeah.
I mean, the worst mistake I can ever make with a model kit is to hold a tiny piece in tweezers.
Oh yeah, it's guaranteed to,
because you've either got normal tweezers that will ping, and you just drop it, or you've got so I'm dropping things now. I can't find mine, but you've got the reverse grip tweezers where you push them apart and they open up, and when you let go they close, so they hold it permanently. Even those will ping a tiny part across the desk or across into the carpet monsters territory. So I try not to hold tiny pieces in tweezers. It's the worst thing you can do. Just jam it down with your finger. And sometimes it's a case of jamming it between your finger and thumb, so the bit you need to sound is just showing. Just as long as you've got a good grip on that piece, so it's not going to fly off, because that's the worst thing ever.
Yeah, lots of ways. Right. Any more questions for you guys in the chat?
Philip Road says, have you chaps suffered from accidents, cut finger or severed limbs? I have never injured myself at all ever with any kind of sharp object whilst model making. Next question. Yeah, I'm known as Captain Stabberty. Yeah, which is why everybody panicked when I got out my really dull chisel blade.
I lost a leg once, but I grew back, so I wasn't that bothered.
Yeah, I could stab myself with that. I actually stabbed myself in the... I don't know how I did it. About a week ago, I stabbed myself in the shin with my modelling knife. Like, I don't tend to have my legs on the workbench. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm known as Captain Stabberty. So.
It's always, I tend to stab myself with the needle from the airbrush with a knife.
Oh, I hate that. When you forget you've taken the crown cap off. Yeah. And you're like, I'll just give it a blow back. Oh, I've stabbed myself and I've knackered the needle.
Yeah.
I don't know what's worse. You've stabbed yourself or you've knackered your needle. I don't know which is worse in my mind.
I just think I've got to buy another needle. It's amazing how dangerous this hobby is, and we encourage children to take part. In this hobby.
Yeah. Nate Bliss says he learned from the tweezers the mistake the hard way. I really don't use tweezers that much because I find they're not trustable. You can't trust them unless you're Japanese, because they can. The Japanese model makers are the most amazing model makers in the world. None of us will ever compare to them, but I can't. You know, they could pick up a molecule in tweezers and they'd never drop it, but I can't. I don't trust tweezers to not mess my project up.
Right. I don't think there's any more questions come in. So should we do get onto the prizes as before we wrap things up?
Let's do some giveaway type stuff.
Should we give a t-shirt away first? I'm not wearing a t-shirt tonight. I'm not giving this one away because it's the only one I've got. But I will give an Ammo of Mig t-shirt away. What
sizes do we have, Tedward?
We only have XXL, and medium. So if you win the t-shirt, you'll have to let me know which size you want. I'm a little bit out of focus again. There we go. And also remember, if you've won a prize before, you're more than welcome to take part again. But when we ask a question, if you don't want to win the prize, give the people a chance to answer. But as I say, you're more than welcome to have another go. And I think, should we do the t-shirt one then?
Yeah, do that one first. Bear in mind, everyone, as we always say, but for anybody that's new, what we do is we ask the question, you put the question in the chat, and we go off the first answer that we see on our screen. Now, everybody knows there's always a time difference between when you type your answer and when it appears in chat for different people. You'll see it before probably we see it. It's the one we see first, because we've got the master chat, as it were. So what we see might not match what you see on your screen, but give it a go.
Yeah. Right. We had to think about it this week. We've got a bit of a topical question. There's recently been announced, and you can't answer the question until I say go.
Yep. Wait till we say go.
Wait till we say go. You can't answer it before. There's recently been an announcement by the BBC about the new Doctor Who. Who is the new Doctor Who? Go.
I've forgotten the name already. Oh, damn it. I hope you've got it written down.
Yeah, I've got it written down.
Quick, tell me the name, but without anybody knowing about it.
Oh, I can't. Jodie Whittaker says Troughton Chad.
It's scrolled up already. Let me find it.
There he
Troughton
is.
Chard.
Troughton Chard.
Could that be a Troughton with the Troughton? Could that be a
Troughton Chard? Jodie Whittaker. Yeah, well done. Sorry, Phil, you were just the second question there, but Troughton Chard.
So, yeah, lovely. Troughton Chard, if you can send an email to, I'll put it in the chat as always. Head to eModels.co.uk. I'll just spell it rightly as well.
Thank you. Let me know the size. I've got XXL and medium.
Yes. So whichever you prefer.
Yep. So
well done. Well done.
Well done. Thank you very much. Should we do the mug at the same time? And then we'll sort of, if you would like to, well, you can't see me. It's a sucker Foxx. Would you like to win an eModels mug direct from the guys at eModels for scale model enthusiasts?
Just to interrupt you there, Ted, Troughton Chard says yes, Troughton as in Pat Troughton, second Doctor. So yes, he just happens to have a Doctor Who username, which is kind of cool.
All right. Yeah. I know that it will cause quite a bit of chat amongst the Doctor Who fans as to whether the Doctor should be a woman or it should still be a man, but that's something we probably won't discuss on here, and we'll leave everybody to their own decision.
Yeah, it's not a discussion for the chat, really, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, right. The next question, I suppose it could be related to the last question. The question is, and don't say anything until we've said go. Are we going to ask for this one to be specifically correct, or generally?
Let's go for generally.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah, give everyone a chance.
So, yeah, a missing letter here or there, I won't particularly mind. Right, Doctor Who and the TARDIS. What does TARDIS stand for? Go. What does TARDIS stand for?
I don't know why we're doing the Doctor Who this week. I
don't know. Yeah, it just came up, didn't it? I thought.
Got to come up with a question about something.
It's better than us sitting there looking around thinking, what could I ask? Okay, blue. Yep. No, not Matthew Birtles. No, police box won't do.
I'll stay out of this one.
And underneath that, time and relative dimension in space says Ron Mack.
Yeah,
Ron Mack. Thank you very much. You know where this Ted at eModels.co.uk. You know where to find me. Just send in your address to me at that address.
Yeah, let us know what size of mug you want. No, wait, that's not right.
Let us know what size of mug you want. XXL or Sprue waffle size.
Men's mug or women's mug, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well done, everybody. Well done.
Yes, a little bit of silly fun.
Yeah, just a bit of lightheartedness, just to keep everybody with us and keep everybody interested, and a bit of fun. That's all it's about, just having a bit of fun.
Tedward, have we had any word from the dove from above?
We haven't. We haven't. Not tonight. Chris Williams says, did I get into call boxes often? I used to shelter in phone boxes when it was raining.
Because they would have had the old police call boxes when you were a cop back in the 1900s, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they'd only just invented the telephone when I was there, because up to then we relied on police whistles and the inspector banging his stick on the pavement.
Yeah. Well, Chris does ask, were they big? Were they actually bigger on the inside?
Always. Yeah, everything's bigger on the inside. Yeah. Right. No, we've no question. No word from the dove from above.
No.
So maybe next week.
Just a little teaser, by the way. I haven't been able to do, because we didn't do this at the start, but I haven't been able to do much building over the last couple of weeks. Real life stuff and other things have taken over, so I've been away from the bench. However, obviously the Eagle build, the last episode went up on Sunday. Gone. I'm about to start filming the next episode. Just as a teaser, shall I give this away? Let's just say. No, I'm not going to give it away, but somebody will make an appearance in my next build video.
Yep, just keep watching. Remember, click that little telephone, that little bell icon on the eModels YouTube page, and you will get notified when things happen on the YouTube sites. So you'll get the first knowledge of things happening. And there could be a couple of things happening this week. Or we'll say no more.
Well, don't commit me to doing the episode this week.
No. It could come from you. Could come from me. Could come from Tony.
Oh yeah, Tony McPony. I'm working on his big tank with all the tracks in the world.
All the tracks, yeah. But you never know when things pop up on there. Right. It's coming up to 10:30.
Chris Williams does say real life Destiny. There was a bit of video games in there, but that wasn't what took up most of my time. I'm allowed some time. I'm allowed some downtime every now and then.
Yeah, never know. Right, unless anybody's any pressing questions or want to keep them from next week, you don't forget, email your question in to me at ted@emodels.co.uk. We'll do our best to get them answered. We'll work through the inbox and we'll get them done for you. But I think at 10:30, that's us for an hour and a half this evening, a good evening of chat. So we'll say goodbye. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all next week. Right, what time we got that, Fox? Okay. Good night, everybody.
We'll see you all next week, chaps and chapesses.
Good night.
Have a good week.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.